All right, let's get right into it. We are going to unpack one of the most daring, most legendary prison breaks of all time, the 1962 escape from Alcatraz. Honestly, it's a story of pure genius, incredible grit, and a mystery that, to this day, nobody has solved. You know, the US government wasn't just proud of Alcatraz, they were downright boastful. This place wasn't just a prison, it was a statement. It was a symbol of absolute, inescapable power. Their whole line was, once you land on the rock, your life as you knew it, it was over, for good. But inside that fortress, three men heard that claim not as a fact, but as a challenge, and they were about to use nothing but their own minds and whatever junk they could get their hands on to take that reputation and tear it down one piece at a time. So first, let's really get a sense of what they were up against. I mean, why was Alcatraz considered the world's most secure, absolutely escape-proof prison? Well, it all comes down to its brutal design and its just unforgiving location. Look, Alcatraz was basically a psychological weapon. It's sitting 2.5 kilometers out in the middle of San Francisco Bay, surrounded by these freezing waters and currents so violent they could kill a champion swimmer. And just to ramp up the terror, guards would spread rumors about man-eating sharks. Then inside, the security was just suffocating. Think about it. One armed guard for every 3 inmates, head counts more than a dozen times a day, and snipers on watchtowers with orders to shoot to kill. This place didn't just hold criminals, it broke the spirits of guys like Al Capone. But even a system this tough was about to meet its match. And you just can't make this up. As if by fate, the 3 guys who would cook up this insane plan were all put in cells right next to each other. What made this crew so dangerous was how their skills just meshed perfectly. First, you have Frank Morris. He's the mastermind. With an IQ of 133, we're talking top 2% of the entire population. Plus, he'd escaped from other prisons before. Then you had John and Clarence Anglin. They were brothers, seasoned bank robbers, and they were the resourceful muscle of the operation. And rounding out the team was Alan West, a skilled car mechanic whose know-how would be absolutely critical. So here's the thing. They knew that a brute force escape was just impossible. You couldn't go through the bars, you couldn't get past the guards. No, they had to find a loophole, a way out that no one had ever even dreamed of. And that's where Frank Morris's genius really kicked in. For months, Morris just watched. He observed everything, and he found it, the prison's one tiny overlooked flaw. All that salty sea air had, over the years, eaten away at the concrete around the ventilation grill in his cell. It was weak, it was crumbly. To anyone else, it was nothing. But to a mind like his, that was a doorway. The plan became clear. Dig through the wall, get into the unguarded utility corridor that ran behind the cells, and from there, get to the roof.
Okay, but how in the world do you dig through concrete when you have nothing? No tools, no hammers, no drills. Their solution was just pure raw ingenuity. They figured if they couldn't get a drill, they'd just have to build one themselves.
And this is where their resourcefulness just goes off the charts. They managed to steal the motor out of a vacuum cleaner. They swiped spoons from the canteen and spent hours grinding them down on the concrete floor to sharpen them. Then they put it all together, the motor, the spoon, some guitar string, and they created a homemade rotary drill. It's an absolutely incredible piece of makeshift engineering. Right, but a drill, even a homemade one, is going to make noise. And in the dead silence of Alcatraz at night, that's a death sentence. So what was the solution? Another stroke of genius from Morris. Every evening, the prison had a designated music hour. So Morris would play his accordion as loudly as he possibly could, creating the perfect sound cover for the others to be drilling away in their cells. The guards? They didn't hear a thing but music. Now, as the hole in the wall got bigger, they had a new problem. How do you hide it from the guards who are inspecting your cell constantly? Their solution here was pure artistry. They crafted a fake wall section and a fake grill using paper mache they made from magazines and toilet paper. Then they used paints they stole from the art class to match it perfectly to the grimy cell wall. It was completely convincing. But getting out of the cell block was really just the beginning. The real killer was the bay itself. They knew trying to swim it was suicide, so they decided they weren't going to swim. They were going to sail. Their next impossible task, build an inflatable raft and life vests, all from within the prison walls. This part is just astounding to me. In their secret workshop, that utility corridor behind the cells, they collected over 50 stolen raincoats. They figured out that they could use the heat from the prison's own steam pipes to vulcanize the seams. Basically, they were melting the rubber together to create these perfect, airtight, waterproof seals. They built a 14-foot raft, life vests, and they even carved paddles out of wood. They were literally running a secret boat-building factory in the middle of America's toughest prison. But this whole elaborate plan depended on one thing: buying time. They needed hours to get away, but the guards were checking the cells with flashlights all night long. If a bed was empty, the alarm would go off in a second. And their solution to this problem is probably the most famous part of this entire story: the dummy heads. And the artistic detail here is just chilling. They made a paste out of soap, toilet paper, and even concrete dust, and they sculpted it into these shockingly lifelike heads. They painted them with flesh-toned paints they'd nicked from the art class. But here's the masterstroke: the hair. They collected real human hair off the floor of the prison barbershop and painstakingly glued it onto the heads. The final result was so realistic, so creepy, that other prisoners said they were actually scared of them. So all the pieces were finally in place. They had the tools, the raft, the decoys. Everything was ready. All they needed was the right moment. And on the night of June 11th, 1962, they decided it was time to go.
At 9:30 p.m., the lights went out. It was go time. They put the dummy heads in their beds and slipped into the corridor. But then, disaster. Alan West, the mechanic, couldn't get his grill open. It was jammed. The others couldn't wait. In what must have been a heartbreaking decision, they had to leave him behind. The remaining three, Morris and the Anglin brothers, scrambled 30 feet up the plumbing pipes, broke through a vent onto the roof, shimmied down a 50-foot pipe, and finally hit the ground. They made it to the water's edge, inflated their homemade raft, and just vanished into the darkness.
And all through the night, as this incredible escape was unfolding, the guards just kept walking their routes, totally oblivious that Alcatraz's ironclad reputation had just been shattered forever. So imagine this: it's the next morning. A guard is yelling at Frank Morris to get up. He's not moving. The guard gets angry, reaches in to shake him, and the dummy head just rolls right off the pillow and onto the floor. Absolute panic. The alarm starts blaring across the island, kicking off one of the biggest manhunts in FBI history. Alcatraz was in total chaos. The search was just massive. We're talking helicopters, boats, hundreds of officers combing the area. But what did they find? Almost nothing. Just a few fragments of the plan floating in the bay. A paddle, some bits of raincoat, and a wallet with the Anglin brothers' family photos inside. But what they never found were any bodies. And this, right here, is where the great debate begins. You've got two main theories. The FBI's official conclusion is that the men drowned. Simple as that. Their logic was that the bay was just too cold, too rough, nobody could survive it. But the other theory, the one most people love to believe, is that they were far smarter than that they intentionally left those items to be found to make it look like they drowned so the authorities would eventually call off the search. And the mystery just got deeper. Fast forward 50 years to 2013, the San Francisco Police Department gets a letter. It starts, "My name is John Anglin. We all made it that night." The writer claims he's dying of cancer and offers to turn himself in exchange for medical care. The FBI analyzed the handwriting, but the results came back inconclusive. So the letter just hangs there, another tantalizing, unproven piece of this giant puzzle. In the end, the government shut down Alcatraz just 1 year after the escape, partly because of the embarrassment and the huge cost of running it. The escape really proved that no system, no matter how tough, is completely foolproof against human ingenuity and that powerful, desperate need for freedom. So I'll leave you with a question. Were they geniuses who pulled off the impossible, or did their luck finally run out in the cold, dark waters of the bay? The mystery of Alcatraz remains unsolved.